Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If our last speaker made you laugh a lot, our next speaker is going to make you soar into the heights, into space as well, where sky is not the limit. Till just 3 days ago, Mr. Ex-ISRO Kiran Kumar was chairman of the Indian Space Research Organization. He just reminded us he's just handed over on Monday after 40 years of distinguished service with ISRO. So let's give him a very warm round of applause for that. As you all know, ISRO is an organization that has made every Indian proud. It has fired the imagination of the nation with its innovative missions to the moon and Mars. Both these missions received international acclaim, even from space pioneers like the US and Russia. And with classic Indian jugaad, cost-cutting, we got it right on the first time in each occasion. So let's give them a warm round of applause for that. ISRO is a government institution, and yet it performs as probably one of the best performing private sector units as well, with the kind of mission and direction that the scientists have given, with delivery targets for everything. The ISRO chairman is better than many of the top CEOs of this country, in case people don't realize it. So let's give him a round of applause for that as well. Just to simplify everything with ISRO, because many people think rocket science is rocket science, and people's eyes glaze over. India is now self-sufficient in rocket technology and also in satellite building. And that puts it on par with the big boys of space, among the top 5 spacefaring nations. And under Kiran Kumar's watch, last year, ISRO launched 104 satellites in one go. That by itself is a Guinness Book of Records for any country. And most importantly, this is not a science as a kind of blue sky research. This is not just because boys like Kiran Kumar have toys like rockets that go up and they enjoy the distance it goes. No, this is serious business, because space is really about the country's development. And there has been no single government institution that has contributed so substantially to the country's development by what it does. And just to give you an idea of how the Space Department has touched each of our lives, it firstly helps to connect all our remote villages over telephone or cell phone. It enables the telecasting of news and information and entertainment, of course. The weather report, every day that you see the weather report, the Met Department uses ISRO satellites to predict the weather. It gives farmers vital inputs about the condition of soil. It helps fishermen make better catch for their daily bread. And the former chairman was just mentioning to me that they have just evolved a GPS kind of unit, not a GPS, but a compass, a very simple compass, so that there's no data to be seen, where it just points a direction, and the fishermen go there and go where the catch is, and they've come back and reported in Kerala phenomenal amount of catch as a result of that device, which is powered by an ISRO satellite. And of course, it helps the nation identify key resources, minerals, and other forms of things. So ISRO is intimately involved in the country's development, and that's what makes it really unique. As I had mentioned earlier, Kiran Kumar has been has been in ISRO for close to 40 to 45 years, but he's been chairman of ISRO since 2015 and just laid down office. Kiran Kumar, by the way, was deeply involved in building vital payloads for spacecraft, particularly remote sensing, which is of minerals and other kinds of signatures that help us navigating our seas, and of course the more exciting part of mapping the surface of the moon and Mars. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Kiran Kumar to the India Today Conclave South. Louder, please. We need a good round of applause for our scientists. They're never really lauded at all. Sir, may I now request you to speak?
Speak from here. Speak from here. Thank you, Chengappa, for that excellent introduction, and also reminding us
that it's ISRO which has been doing a great job over the years. And what probably many people do not realize is ISRO started its activities way back in '60 with the prime objective of bringing in a new capability which became available to the globe. When the first Sputnik went up to space, it was Dr. Sarabhai, Vikram Sarabhai, who had the vision of looking at how this new technology of space can be made use of for the development in our country. And it was his efforts which brought in initially a set of sounding rockets which was put in Tumba Equatorial Rocket Launching Site. We started our first launch activity way back in '63. And it was at that time, he had to actually convince the fishermen through the priest of a church in the Tumba Equatorial Rocket Launching Site beach. And what he had to, the priest had to convince the fishermen, telling them that if you vacate this place today, one day in future, India will benefit. And true to that, '99 onwards, we were able to provide to the fishermen information about fishing zone. And at that time, it was a little more complicated in the sense the information had to be given in the form of latitude, longitude, and the fisherman still had to do some more work before he could reach. But the experiment that was conducted just a few weeks back in Kerala is far different, where using our Navik satellites, we have a unique messaging capability in this satellite, and it also has a capability of determining the position like the GPS with our own indigenous system. And what it does is a small gadget is fitted onto the boat of the fisherman, and fisherman in his mobile, he sees a compass needle which points to him where he has to go for the fishing. And it also gives him, when he is in the ocean, weather information in terms of whether it is heavy winds or sea state roughness, so that he gets the necessary alert to take care of any vagaries of weather affecting him while he is there. And this, some of the fishermen who went, they went up to 180 nautical miles and 100 nautical miles. And then after they came back, when they were reporting, one of them was so much excited, he said, never in my life have I seen so much of fish at one place, that kind of thing. So basically what I was trying to tell is, the space technology, right from its inception, has been trying to make use of space as a mechanism, space as a technology tool for addressing the problems of our country. Apart from this fishing activity for the fishermen, which even from '99 onwards, when the information was being provided, it saves to the country between 15 to 20,000 crores a year in terms of petrol and diesel saved by the fishermen. Apart from that, in the very initial days, the technology was used for reaching out to the entire country. And in '75, one of the world's, you can say, the largest socio-technological experiment was conducted by ISRO by making use of a technology which today you are all familiar as direct to home. This was done in '75 by borrowing a satellite from Americans, which was moved over to the Indian longitude for 1 year. And in 2,400 remotest villages or the most backward villages of our country, the direct-to-home equivalent service was established using black and white television sets of ECIL and front-end hardware realized in Space Application Center. And it was demonstrated to the country and to the governance at that time, if India has to move forward by reaching out information to all the citizens, both in terms of whether teleconnectivity or broadcasting, it is the space technology which is going to help. And it was that experiment for 1 year which demonstrated to the government, and government had no difficulty in accepting this as a new mechanism for providing solutions to the problem. And from that time onwards, ISRO has been trying to make use of this technology for whether it is for bringing in where to drill bore wells, or in terms of cyclones, identifying where the cyclone is going to hit the coast, or in terms of today, the amount of information that the space technology is generating and which is being used by state government departments, central government departments, is increasing at such a pace that today whatever 45 satellites which are up in space are grossly inadequate to meet our requirements, and we need probably double this number. And towards this, we have been working to increase the number of launches. As you're also quite familiar, India today has an indigenous capability of putting satellites into low Earth orbit or geostationary orbit or even orbits into Moon and Mars, where not only have we demonstrated that while we build indigenous capability, we are also making sure that any excess capacity that has been built by ISRO is being used for ensuring that we get some returns, not only for our own countries and our own academic institutions, but also by providing opportunities to small satellite manufacturers. That is where you saw last year 104 satellites being put in a single launcher, which became such a big news. But our effort was not so much as to break records, it was our effort was to maximize the returns what we get in that launcher, because we are carrying in that launcher a Cartosat, which is roughly about 700 plus kilograms in weight, and we had almost equal weight available, and we maximized our returns by offering these small satellite manufacturers a piggyback ride. And then subsequently, we also did last year, as you are aware, indigenous development of cryogenic technology. A cryogenic technology, a technology which is very well guarded, and it's a difficult technology. Just to appreciate, if, for example, the cooling of the engine does not happen for a second, the entire engine will melt down. So there is a lot number of activities which happens in that cryogenic engine realization. And in all this, what we have been trying to do is, we have been trying to bring in the industry in the country, and more than 80% of the work we are doing in the launch vehicle, we have been actually supporting and handholding the Indian industry. And for a long time, the industry was feeling that they are actually doing the sort of a sacrifice for the country. But now with the PSLV, etc., if you take, when we are talking about the numbers being increased to 12 to 18 launches a year, there is an opportunity for the industry to cash in on whatever technology they have developed by providing solutions not only to us, but also there is a huge market, international market, where they can actually capture a portion of that market by making use of the space technology. And while we were doing all this, we also needed to ensure that we build indigenous capacity, not only in industry, but also in academia. And this is where our Lunar Mission or the Mars mission and also the AstroSat mission have all made a huge impact. That is because we, as you pointed out, we were the first country in a maiden attempt to put a satellite around Mars. Just to appreciate the complexity of this, if you are told that on the 5th of November when we launched this satellite, the task cut out for this satellite was to travel about 600 million kilometers over 10 months. And at the end of the 10 months, on 24th of September 2014, morning 7:30 a.m. to the second, in the universe at a finite place, you imagine a cube of 50 kilometers. If this object is not inside that cube, our mission would have been a failure. So the kind of task that was cut out was very specific, and that's where actually the globally it drew attention that India was able to achieve such a very precise task, and even the kind of disturbances that could have changed the trajectory of the satellite is just the sunlight falling on the satellite itself produces enough force over a period of 10 months, it could change its trajectory and take it out of that 50-kilometer cube, what I was talking about. And then just 104 satellites, what we launched last year. More than that, one more thing we have also shown that India is actually making use of the knowledge, what it has got in the space technology. It's also trying to help our neighboring countries achieve some kind of a useful information coming from our South Asia satellite, and this was launched last year, and many of our neighboring states have been given transponders on communication satellite. Then we were also able to build a very unique observatory in space, where today it's able to look at celestial objects, do the transient phenomena observation, and this is really unique because it carries in it a telescope in far ultraviolet, which has 3 times better resolution than the best in the world. So many things we have been able to do, and all this in terms of the space technology being used for the development in the country. Today we have Manrega, which has brought in more than 2.5 crore assets into the database, which is being used by the government for bringing in transparency in activities and also trying to use it for a host of actions. So actually the space technology activity in India has been primarily driven by harnessing this new technology, and what we have been trying to do is make use of any technology that is accessible to us, make use of it. What is not accessible, develop it indigenously, and that's how we have moved ahead, and that's how the entire team has a single focus of bringing in space as a technology for country's development.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kiran Kumar, for that overview of ISRO. A couple of questions. When you were mentioning about the way you had helped fishermen, I was just wondering whether there would have been any way ISRO could have saved these, when Cyclone Ockhi hit the Kerala coast recently, Tamil Nadu, I think 300 fishermen died. Was there any way that ISRO could have helped in giving a warning, telling them that this is really a bad weather, you shouldn't be going out?
What we need to appreciate is each of us have a job to do. The job of Indian Space Research Organization is actually to make use of the space infrastructure, space as a technology, provide tools and services. We have a number of other departments in the country which have to make use of this and do their jobs of actually reaching out and providing. In this particular case, I am actually aware the information did go out, but then unlike in the case of cyclones, etc., which in our eastern coast, people are all quite familiar and the disaster relief agencies do the necessary activities. In the other side, the number of such events that have happened have been far and few. So many times people do not heed to the advice that is given.
So you were saying there was enough warning from your satellites coming in?
The satellites provide the information and the people responsible for providing it to the concerned also do their job. But then there's a huge chain. See, today what we can definitely say is disaster relief agencies have definitely established a very good mechanism of evacuating people in all the western coast, in the east coast side, and that's how last few super cyclones have not resulted in loss of lives. But the same thing has to happen at other places also. There is a lot of groundwork which needs to be done.
The other question was that since we are in Hyderabad, DRDO is here, Defense Research and Development Organization. They build our Agni, they build our Prithvi. Why can't we have greater collaboration? Aren't we duplicating our efforts? You all build rockets of course, to send peaceful spacecraft to space. They built missiles. Why can't we collaborate in terms of our capabilities? Why should we duplicate our efforts in building the same rockets?
No, some of these things, what happens is there is a different geopolitical situations, and then there are differences in terms of certain technology being accessible or certain information being more than the information, certain hardware being accessible when it is a civilian activity versus a strategic activity, etc. But as the country grows in terms of its capability and potential, and things keep changing, and so now we are poised for looking at the things in a different way compared to what was happening a decade or few decades back.
Now that we are part of the MTCR that allows collaboration between space and DRDO? The missile technology regime, control regime.
No, there are many things which need to be actually discussed and then taken forward to. But what I was trying to say is things are changing. Even India now is one of the fastest growing economies, and then in future it has to find more ways of actually dealing with various situations that it is going to encounter, and it cannot probably adopt the same methodology that existed in the past, but things are going to change in future.
Now, Team Indus, which is the private venture that has joined the Google X race to put a spacecraft in the moon and drive it a little bit, apparently they're in trouble because ISRO is not making available its launcher for certain reasons. Since you were chairman till recently, could you explain what is the problem with Team Indus's effort?
Yeah, probably at this point of time, I would not like to get into this discussion. Maybe sometime later.
But is it still on or off, do you say?
No, actually, it's a very tough task what they had tried to do. There were many hurdles, and probably that's where I would leave it at this stage.
Okay, you wouldn't want to get into the controversy on this one. Okay, but given the fact that ISRO, you did mention ISRO is privatizing a lot of its work and giving it out to private contractors to build your launchers. If you look at SpaceX, Elon Musk's effort, they are doing trailblazing work in space research and space launches. They're able to get back a launcher. Is the future now getting away from government departments like ISRO, and actually now private companies can do the work that ISRO is doing?
No, one thing what we definitely need to appreciate is when you compare situations in Europe or in America, all those countries have spent for decades trillions of dollars in so-called war industry, and then huge amount of money is actually spent both in academia and in the industry. And industry ecosystem is far more evolved than what it was in our country. It's only beyond 90s that you are seeing a significant change in the ecosystem of the industry. And today, definitely we have a lot more capability, and today we will be definitely be able to actually enable many of the industries to get into the space technology related activities. That's what ISRO has been trying to do. And our objective of building capacity in the country, both within the organization and also within the industry as well as academia, it is taking a, you can say, accelerated pace of activity. We are trying to work out a mechanism for a joint venture for PSLV, where by 2020-21 time frame, first launch of PSLV could happen with such a joint venture. We are also providing opportunities to the industry to integrate satellites, and then we have already provided some. And over a period of time, some of the industries which have worked with us have grown in stature. They have acquired companies abroad, and they are providing solutions to both ISRO as well as to the international space technology community. So this is a mechanism, and this is a thing which has to see an accelerated pace of work. And in the coming years, you will see that, in fact, we have also given to one of the, you can say, startup companies, development of a particular hardware which gives us an electric propulsion type of capability, more than a 1 crore contract to them, and they are developing on that. So we also have a large amount of activity related to the Space Act, and then enabling the industry, because space technology and then space operations comes with it certain liability in case of any difficulties you encounter in space. So the government also has to come up with certain mechanism. We are working in all this, and in the coming days it will happen.
So what percentage can we say is now going to be private in, say, a launcher? What percentage of the craft would be, say, private in satellites in future, as getting in?
No, today if you look at even now, in terms of PSLV, almost 80% of our work we do in industry. Though the industry themselves are not totally, you can say, independently doing, but we are getting this job done through them. Now in future, in fact, just the other day we had, even in terms of one of the solid rockets, we enabled one industry to actually build a thrust, the PS, what we call our strap-on motor, and that it was static test was done. It was a 1 year effort of hand-holding them and making. So our objective definitely is to make sure that India as a country is able to make use of the space technology, space frontier, and then come forward.
Sorry, this is technology at its best.
You have to make sure.
Sorry, I didn't make sure it was silent. But you know, the other question is that when we were talking about Mars and Moon and the Moon mission, why would a country like India, barring the fact that it gives us a feel-good factor, send something to Mars and Moon? I mean, we're replicating, we're reinventing the wheel. Many countries have done that. What's the great justification for us to feel so proud about this?
Yeah, I think this is a very important point you need to appreciate. See, when you are building capabilities, see what we said, we want to make sure that space technology we use for providing solutions to various activities on ground. Now, when you are building technological capabilities, you need to make sure that you provide more and more challenging opportunities to the scientists and engineers who are working on that. See, when you send a satellite to Mars, for example, it's a highly miniaturized satellite which builds in a large amount of autonomy in the satellite. Now, today, because we were able to do Mars mission, many of our small satellites and the Cartosat series of satellites, what we have built, we are able to bring in so much of autonomy into those satellites that we don't have to do a lot of actually work from ground station, controlling it and monitoring it. So your ability to build miniaturized systems improves, you are working on more difficult environment, and you are solving problems of communication. And many of these, for example, when you put a satellite in geostationary, it's only 3.6 lakh, 36,000. Moon is 3.6 lakhs, and Mars is 360 million kilometers. Now, each one of them gives you an ability to build a propulsion system which can last longer, which can produce more efficiently. So many times you would have heard that even if you have to stay in the same place, you have to run for that. So it is in that sense that you have to actually challenge the scientists and engineers to work on more complex problems, and their ability of problem solving improves by these capabilities. And it is such activities not only helps, for example, it brought in a kind of, you can say, feeling in the entire country, not only students, researchers, even the common man, that in India we can do things, that can-do attitude of achieving great things in terms of space. And this is one of the important aspects which is essential. We need to keep challenging our people on more and more difficult tasks so that the difficult problems of future they can solve.
Well, there is just about time for some rapid-fire questions that we'd like to answer. And if you could give us one-line answers, I know it's difficult. So what was your best day at ISRO, since you've just retired from there?
I would say every day is the best day, because what I have seen is over the entire period, there was always good and newer target and newer, greater achievements to be done. So, and it's continuing to be on the rising ramp, and next generation also is going to carry on with that.
But at least tell us your best launch. I mean, you've seen so many launches in your life. Which was the best one that you enjoyed the most?
Yeah, definitely it is when the insertion of the Mars orbiter happened on the Mars.
Let's give them a very, very big round of applause for getting the Mars mission right on the first time. No other country has done it on the first attempt, and India did it, as I mentioned earlier, with great amount of jugaad on this, and they deserve all the applause. Now, of course, I'm coming to a little more ticklish question. Which is your worst day at ISRO?
If the best day is every day, the worst day is also every day, because you have newer challenges, more difficult things to do.
But which launch did you watch, or which satellite, and you said, gosh, that was a bad miss by us?
No, that, of course, was the last launch, because the last in the previous, not the 12th January, in the August 31st, what happened? We were seeing that the heat shield has not separated, satellite is trapped inside that. You feel in that particular launch, no matter where the launcher could have put the satellite, we would have been able to use that satellite. But it got trapped inside the heat shield. That's when
so it was like a premature baby. Yeah. It wasn't born at all.
It was born, not born.
Okay. Do you watch sci-fi movies? And if so, which is your favorite one?
Okay. Actually, I used to see a lot of movies in the initial days, but as the day means my career grew in ISRO, the number of movies started coming down. Initial days in Ahmedabad, the drive-in theater every Saturday probably we used to go.
And sci-fi, did you like sci-fi movies? Do you think there is life in other planets, other solar systems in this?
No, probably as of today, we do not have any solid evidence to say such a thing exists. But at the same time, to believe that in billions and billions of objects that exist in this universe, we are the only people who are living in a planet, maybe too much of this thing to expect. One day we might find.
Okay. This is a little broader question. Which space mission you think, which any country has done, has been the best in the world so far? Which you consider, wow, that was something?
No, one of the things is probably an explorer satellite which has gone beyond the solar system. A spacecraft which was built in the maybe 70s with, you don't have all the today's high computer systems or chips, etc. Still it is working after so many years and it's sending signals. It's one of the great missions, I would think.
Okay. And finally, would you have rather been an astronaut or a scientist?
Definitely an astronaut, because you want to go into space and see both Earth and the universe from that position.
Well, we wish you all the best in your coming years. I'm sure you'll contribute much more to space research. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give Mr. Kiran Kumar a very, very warm round of applause, a standing ovation for an outstanding scientist. The nation owes him a lot for what he has done. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
And may I please also call on stage Sudhakar Rao, Director Branding for Ex-ISRO Group, and Mr. Kiran Kumar, really. It's been such a pleasure to have you today at the India Today Conclave and to hear you, and many, many more accolades coming for ISRO and many more accomplishments as well. Please, let's hear it once again for our esteemed guest, Mr. A.S. Kiran Kumar, former chairman for ISRO.